Welcome to the Personality Couch podcast, where we discuss all things personality and clinical practice. I'm your host, Doc Bach, and I'm here with my co-host, Doc Fish. We are both licensed clinical psychologists in private practice, and today we are continuing our series on pathological narcissism, which led us to the concept of malignant narcissism and other darker themes. We questioned, is there a worse personality type than extreme narcissism? Can a narcissist be a psychopath? Is there something even worse than a psychopath? Well, we're about to tell you where our research led. So join us down a dark, multifaceted rabbit hole as we discuss the spectrum of personality darkness and how bad it can get. Let's dive in.
Yay, darkness. Okay, so in our research, we found something exciting. Michael Stone, a forensic psychiatrist, came up with an entire spectrum that helps us understand how narcissism and its associated traits can devolve into psychopathy and destruction.
Ooh.
This spectrum has 6 main components, each one getting progressively worse. So level 1 contains all the negative traits. Dun, dun, dun. Well, actually, this is the mild end of the spectrum where we have people with negative personality characteristics. Stone listed a few of these as abrasive, argumentative, deceitful, discourteous, tactless, and vindictive.
Okay, so level 1, these are the argumentative jerks of the world. Like, people don't like them. They may seem charming at first, but they're just prickly porcupine people. Or people that don't fit into the social herd well. They're just annoying, right? So they're not necessarily dangerous or even criminals, and they probably wouldn't harm others. They're just all around unpleasant to be with and likely have issues in relationships because of their personalities.
Right. So maybe an example might be a meddlesome teacher who has problems with boundaries and is like up in everyone's business.
Right. So still pleasant, maybe, but annoying. Or then I think of like the quarrelsome guy at the hardware store who's like trying to fix his lawnmower and yelling at the clerk who's out of the screw size that he needs.
Yes, that's a good one. Maybe an envious neighbor who's looking over your fence and like one-ups your purchases or your lawn care.
Oh, like, you got mulch? Me too. What are the odds? Like, mine's better. Let me park my behind on my fancy lawn chair and watch you plant your flowers.
Yeah.
So these are the pain in the butt people who just get on your nerves or are argumentative and prickly, but they won't kill you.
Nope. But let's peel back another layer and go more severe, but still within level 1.
Okay, so let's zoom in to more severely negative traits. So a person with these traits might be aggressive, hostile, cruel, predatory, malicious, and scheming.
Now, these can occur outside of the context of crime and harm. Like, we're not at a level of criminal darkness.
Yeah, it's just dusk. Like, the people we really, really don't like or maybe even hate, they're worse than just annoying, like the types we just talked about. But they're still in level 1, but just a more severe form of negative personality characteristics.
So, for example, the grudge-holding boss who punishes the employee for one mistake 2 years ago that he just can't live down.
Or the jealous partner who's constantly checking their lover's phone for any indication of foul play, despite no evidence.
Maybe a slanderous, vengeful ex-girlfriend who promises a smear campaign to end your career after breaking up with her.
Yep. She won't kill you, but she'll make your life miserable.
Exactly. Yep. Negative personality traits of all shapes and sizes. That's level 1.
Yep. Okay. So going a level deeper into the darkness abyss. Level 2, disordered personalities live in this dark space. Okay, so specifically narcissistic personality disorder and one called paranoid personality disorder. Now, we have talked extensively about narcissistic personality disorder in this series, so we're not going to camp for here long. But these personalities are self-important, entitled, exploitative, envious, and arrogant. They need excessive admiration, they believe they're special, and they fantasize about unlimited success and power. They also can lack empathy. Now, let me just be clear that while the average narcissist won't kill you, at extreme levels, coupled with other severe personality traits, they can.
Mm-hmm. So Stone, the well-known forensic psychiatrist, wrote an article with murderous examples that are actually useful to understand the differences in the darkness layers.
Ooh.
So let's look at a couple of narcissistic personalities motivated by greed, abandonment, and a wish to upgrade their partner.
Ooh.
First is the motivation of greed. So one guy killed his mom and another family member after putting pipe bombs under his mom's car because she was about to financially cut him off. And because he was hoping for like a $10 million inheritance payout.
Oh, hello. Yikes.
Narcissistic greed. Now, another lady, her image was wounded by abandonment because her husband cheated because he found her like cruel and self-absorbed. And she hired someone to kill him.
Oh.
Yeah. It seems to be like a case of like, no one can have him if I can't.
Ooh. Woof. My word.
The last example of narcissism motivated to kill. So this guy wanted to start a restaurant and be with a younger, prettier woman. But his wife got pregnant and wouldn't abort when he asked. So he killed her and the unborn baby and shot himself non-fatally to make it look like someone else did it.
Jeez.
All in pursuit of an image upgrade and a grandiose dream.
Yuck. Oh. Okay, so these stories are from Stone.
Mm-hmm.
So he provided us with this information about these case scenarios.
Yep.
Yikes. Whoa. Okay, so that was narcissistic personality disorder gone bad, but there's also paranoid personality disorder all within this level too. So similar to narcissistic personality disorder, paranoid personality disorder can be mild or more severe. So not all paranoids are going to be dangerous, but those who are paranoid and commit violent crimes have the more severe criteria.
Also, this type of personality is more likely to commit mass murders, meaning 3 or more murders in one outburst.
Yikes. I'm thinking like maybe the Oklahoma City bombing type mass murder, or like shooting up an establishment for mass carnage.
That.
Oh gosh. And this is only level 2 of 6, right? Wow. Stone also had an interesting quote. He said, among mass murderers, only 10% that he studied were psychopaths, while most of the others were disgruntled, paranoid men who held grudges, were pathologically jealous, and vindictive. End quote. Doc Fish, tell me these examples that he used.
Okay, so he highlighted one in a marriage where a guy killed his wife and 6-year-old daughter a few days after his wife told him she was going to file for a divorce.
Gosh.
Now, there was a history of pathological jealousy, control, and physical abuse, though he was a devout Christian and former lieutenant commander in the Navy.
Jeez. Y'all, watch out for these wolves in sheep's clothing. Cannot say that enough. And if domestic violence is happening, run. It could mean your life.
Another example he used was a guy who stalked a girl. She refused to date him, and eventually she even filed a restraining order, which he did not respect.
Oh, dear.
Now, he threatened to kill her if she didn't go out with him, which also led to him getting fired. 2 years later, he killed 7 people and wounded 4, including the girl, at his old workplace. This was turned into a movie in 1993 called I Can Make You Love Me.
Whoa. Okay, I'm still reeling from this story. Like that level of vindictiveness and control for love. And I also think of like the dangers of stalking right here in this story. Oh dear.
Right. Like that's a 2-year grudge. The last example Stone provided of a paranoid personality disorder is a male student who died by suicide after he calmly shot and killed 5 people he felt were conspiring against him and his achievements in his university.
Oh,
So they included professors, his mentor, and his rival peer.
my word. That's awful and scary.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. That grudge, I'm hearing kind of a theme here of like harboring grudges. So different combinations of symptoms within both paranoid personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder can make these characters more mild and less dangerous, but then some combinations can be more severe and harmful.
Like the examples.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so these are heading more in the direction of psychopathy here. Holy cow. Okay, but we got to go a level deeper into the darkness. So level 3, you might recognize it. It's malignant narcissism. Okay. So again, we're not going to camp here since we just talked about malignant narcissism in our subtype episodes, which I'll link on YouTube if you're watching on there. But briefly, this special flavor of narcissism has antisocial behavior, sadism and aggression, and of course, paranoid flavors. So basically, these types are full of themselves. They go against social norms and rules. They hurt others, and they believe they're justified in doing so because everyone is out to get them.
So I love this quote by Stone. He says, if there is, from the standpoint of personality, one red thread running through the majority of violent crimes, this would be narcissism. Whoever chooses, that is to stab, choke, bludgeon, shoot, tie up, sequester, etc., is obviously putting his own needs, desires, and entitlements in first place and is giving no place at all to the needs, desires, and entitlements of the victims.
This level of self-centeredness is so vile. Like that life itself could be snuffed out so that that person can meet their own needs of the self. Ugh. And as we always say, pathological narcissism is the first ingredient in all problematic personalities. So malignant narcissism is narcissism gone way bad. It's rotten. So this is where personality darkness meets the night.
Right. So an example of a violent malignant narcissist was described in a 2016 case study. There was a doctor who murdered his wife and children, but actually he wasn't actually a doctor. He was faking it. He was faking his social status. Now, upon narcissistic injury, because he thought he was about to be caught, he killed his close relatives and unsuccessfully attempted suicide. So he maintained his relationships and technically had loyalty to his family, considering them part of himself and taking them out with him.
Oh, unbelievable. Okay, so the family here was a narcissistic extension of the self. Yuck. So while murderers and violent criminals probably wouldn't meet the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder in the DSM, so the DSM type is not typically violent, but there is a heaping dose of narcissism in all violent offenders, especially malignant narcissism.
Especially.
Yeah. All right, but we got to go deeper into the night. Level 4 is antisocial personality disorder.
So when malignant narcissism gets worse, it heads towards antisocial personality disorder. I think a brief comparison is warranted here because there are some similarities. There's actually a 25% overlap between narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, as they share traits like strong reactions to criticism, feeling invincible, and aggression or violence in reaction to threats to superiority.
Okay. And then, of course, we have other obvious traits like grandiosity, need for admiration, exploitation of others, and lack of empathy. So those are the things that overlap with these two personality disorders, but they are different. Okay, so antisocial personality disorder, definition time. It is a pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others, criminality, impulsivity, and a failure to learn from experience. So the key here is rule breaking, law breaking even, going against social rules and norms, as well as aggression. So not having any concern for the impact of their behavior on others. So those with NPD or narcissistic personality disorder might understand cognitively that they're supposed to feel sad when their partner's dog dies, but they don't feel it inside. But someone with antisocial personality disorder doesn't even take the beat to recognize they're supposed to feel sad. Like they truly don't care.
Right. Like they are capable of caring, but they often lack the motivation to care.
That's right. Yeah.
So let's look at an example of someone with antisocial personality disorder that killed others. Note, this person was not a psychopath. That is yet to come.
Oh, okay.
This guy had a long childhood history of law breaking, including fighting, violence, theft, and gang-related crimes. After getting out of juvie at age 19, he became a bodybuilder. He was a leader of a prominent gang with a goal to protect locals from other gangs and police brutality. And during this time, he was also a youth counselor.
Huh.
Now, unfortunately, he later was addicted to angel dust and killed one person in a store, then 3 in a motel. While he was stealing money to buy the drugs.
Of course.
He was arrested, sentenced to death, and upon incarceration, he did commit assaults against others. However, he ended up pursuing education and writing books discouraging Black youths to engage in gangs. He was actually nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, but was executed in 2005.
Whoa, what a story. So he changed over time, but ultimately he couldn't outrun the consequences of his antisocial rule breaking, killing even past.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So this example, it pulls at the heart. The behaviors are not okay, like absolutely not.
Right.
The reform is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why it's really important we discuss the difference between antisocial personality disorder and psychopathy.
Yes, yes.
So the first distinction is that antisocial children don't usually become antisocial adults, and young adults with antisocial personality disorder will burn out around their 40s.
Ooh.
This aging out dynamic does not happen in psychopathy. Psychopathy is consistent and it stays lifelong.
That is an important distinction. Yeah. So this reminds me of the previous example. He essentially aged out of his criminal behavior as someone with antisocial personality disorder, and he wanted to discourage others from doing what he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, interestingly, Hare created the gold standard measure of psychopathy. So we've probably heard of it. It's Hare's psychopathy checklist. So essentially, antisocial personalities score lower on this checklist than those with psychopathy who are admitting more severe traits and behaviors. So they're not the same. Mm-hmm. Psychopathy is way more severe.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes us to the penultimate level of darkness. Level 5, psychopathy.
There's 2 layers of psychopathy. The lesser layer is psychopathy without violence, which is also sometimes called sociopathy, though there's major disagreement about this. Then there's actual psychopathy with violence.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's go back to Hare and look at his research, since he's the most well-known for studying psychopathy. So he states it well, noting that psychopaths are, quote, intraspecies predators who use charm, manipulation, intimidation, and violence to control others and to satisfy their own selfish needs. Ugh. So it's also notable that psychopathy is marked by a complete absence of empathy. not just impaired empathy or blocked empathy, as we've talked about with certain flavors of narcissism. So there's actually brain imaging and studies that support this, right? So psychopaths just don't experience emotions the same way that normal humans do.
An example of a non-violent psychopath or sociopath would be the guy who engaged in the biggest known Ponzi scheme manipulation and swindled people out of billions of dollars. While he was nonviolent with no assaults, he definitely did not have empathy and he preyed on his clients.
Yeah.
But let's contrast this to violent psychopathy. So there was one guy convicted of 11 murders. Now he has the sexually violent crime triad of childhood, bedwetting, animal torture, and fire setting. Fast forward though, he ended up raping and strangling 11 prostitutes until his arrest. So interesting. Stone actually interviewed him in prison and noted a lack of remorse, cheerfulness, pathological lying, and grandiosity. He even embellished his crimes to impress others.
Ew. Okay, so he was happy and proud about what he did. Jolly, even. That is sick. Okay, so there's definitely a notable difference between psychopathy without violence and then the psychopathy with it. And I can think of lots of different TV show characters and movies that depict these more sinister types. But I'm curious, can it get even worse? And what we found is that apparently so. So let's go into the darkest, blackest night. Sadism is level 6. Sadistic personalities are common in those who commit violent crimes, especially rape and serial sexual murders. Sadistic personalities almost made it into the DSM as a diagnosis, but alas, it only made it into the appendix in 1987 before being booted out in 1994.
So the DSM now essentially stops at antisocial personality disorder with an argument that we don't really see more severe or darker pathology in clinical practice. After antisocial, we're kind of heading into forensic only settings.
Right. So forensic would be like jail, prison, sometimes state hospital or NGRI patients, or not guilty by reason of insanity. So the DSM doesn't cover the full gamut of personality pathology and dysfunction that is possible for the human condition. Just the stuff that's common in clinical practice. But personality can go extremely dark. So let's get back to the most dangerous character, the sadistic personality.
Super important to understand is that sadistic personality is not solely about sexual arousal. We're not talking about sexual sadism here, though that can be included.
Yeah.
So the appendix of the DSM-3R in 1987 noted that 4 out of 8 of the following were needed for sadistic personality. Doc Bach, what are those sadistic attributes?
Yes. Okay. Here we go. So number 1, these types use physical cruelty or violence to establish dominance in their relationships. So I beat you up, I'm in control. Number 2, they get people to do what they want by frightening them through intimidation or terror. So compliance through fear. Number 3, they are controlling of the people in their circles.
So they won't let a spouse leave the house unaccompanied.
Yeah, that's a good example. Number 4, they lie for the purpose of harming or inflicting pain on others. This is an important distinction here. It's not even to cover their tracks, like maybe in narcissistic personality. They do it just to hurt you. Yeah. Number 5, they humiliate or demean people in the presence of others.
So again, not out of unawareness or being self-absorbed. They do it because they want to harm you.
Yep, they want to inflict the harm. Number 6, they treat or discipline someone under their control with unusual harshness.
Okay, so a child, student, prisoner, patient.
Exactly. Number 7, They are amused or take pleasure in the psychological or physical suffering of others, including animals. Like they enjoy it and are giddy over it. Yuck. Okay. And then number 8 is they are fascinated by violence, weapons, martial arts, injury, or torture. Like these are real sickos. Basically, these are the welcoming committee to hell.
Mm-hmm. So a sick example of a sadistic personality is this one guy who actually blended into society. In very, very broad strokes, his fantasies of bondage, torture, and killing women kept getting more prominent until his 40s when he engaged in the actual behaviors, creating a torture chamber that he called the toy box.
Ooh.
So it's actually possible he killed a woman when he was 13 by tying her to a tree. Okay, so there was an intensely psychological aspect to his sadism as he flaunted what he was going to do to his victims before doing it. Police found 100 videotapes of torture and evidence of 40 murders.
Oh my gosh.
He also had a female assistant.
Oh
but
my.
That's all I'm going to say about this example. It's really sick. It's really sick.
My goodness. And this is also a helpful thing to distinguish between antisocial. Like this guy was in his 40s when it really ramped up versus the 40s, we start to kind of phase out of that behavior. He was ramping up the dopamine hit seemingly. I mean, the words that come to mind with a case like this are demented, demonic, twisted, nasty, unfathomable. Like normal humans don't do this.
Right. But at the deepest layer of personality darkness, we have sadistic personalities who then engage in terrorism.
Oh my goodness. So this is going to be the same kind of dynamics, but large scale and often public facing or instilling terror and fear onto the masses. So it's the stuff in the news, but also the stuff that's hidden in classified files, like torture, pain, and power used in the form of terrorism, like to prove a point, to intimidate, to control, to suppress, to humiliate people groups, countries, regions. Oof.
So one article noted that Saddam Hussein probably reached the diagnostic thresholds for sadistic, paranoid, antisocial, and narcissistic personality disorders, with sadistic being the highest. Now, it was also concluded that Saddam Hussein had many of the same personality disorders or features as Adolf Hitler, although sadistic features were stronger in Hussein than Hitler.
Oh, yikes. Okay, so this is all just like nasty characters, really nasty. And it makes sense as you're talking about all the different diagnostic thresholds that this one theorist thought that Hussein met, because as we go down this spectrum, we take pieces of all the personality pathology stuff that precedes it, right? So sadistic is at the bottom of the barrel. It's the worst, but it's also going to have the negative traits, the narcissistic personality disorder or paranoid personality disorder, malignant narcissism, antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy, and then of course, sadism. So it takes like the whole ladder into darkness with it. And yeah, the deeper and darker you go, you're taking all of those characteristics with you, which makes you that much worse.
Now you said the bottom of the barrel, but Stone also said there's no worst case scenario of sadism, just as there's no bottom to human depravity.
Oh, that's a lovely thought. Like there is no bottom.
There's no bottom to the barrel.
Getting worse and worse, straight into Hades. It's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh dear. So in this episode, we learned all about the dark spectrum of personality from least dangerous to the most extreme within these super dangerous personality categories. So just to recap, we had the negative personality traits, followed by narcissistic personality disorder or paranoid personality disorder. And then in the middle is that malignant narcissism that we've been talking a lot about, Even worse than that is antisocial personality disorder, which is like the end of the road in the DSM. And then we break away from the DSM and get into more forensic type stuff like psychopathy. And then the most dangerous is sadism. Oh, all I can say is beware, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Like whiffs of narcissism is where all this stuff starts.
Mm-hmm.
Dark thoughts, dark thoughts. And on that note, we will land the plane for today on an unresolved note with more yet to come in the personality darkness. But thank you for joining us today on this episode of The Personality Couch. Make sure to check out our blogs that coincide with these episodes at www.personalitycouch.com. And as always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up or rate and review us on your favorite podcast app. And on YouTube, hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode in our Narcissism series and beyond. Be well, be kind, not sadistic, and we'll see you next time on The Personality Couch. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute a professional relationship. If you're in need of professional help, please seek out appropriate resources in your area. Information about clinical trends or diagnoses are discussed in broad and universal terms and do not refer to any specific person or case.